Pastoralists are forms of life, or livelihoods that could be indigenous and done by indigenous and native peoples, or just by livestock breeders that take territory as a main base for the animal production and the management of the land. So mobility is a crucial aspect, also using local breeds and other forms of what we would call an agroecological land management applied to animal husbandry. Global level, we are talking about 300 or 400 million people that are pastoralists, according to FAO statistics. They usually are cultures and communities working on areas that are not so adequate for agriculture and farming. And then these areas are usually, for example, tundra and Arctic areas, desert and arid lands, and other forms of grasslands that are not so easy to cultivate. In that sense, there is not necessarily a competition, and this shouldn't be a competition between farming and livestock forms of management. On the other hand, many shepherds and pastoralists use what is left from the crops when they have been harvested. So it's like the cycle of the fertility of the soil depends on livestock and pastoralism to go through what they have been arable cropland and so on. Pastoralists, these many million people I mentioned, hundreds of millions, contribute in a large degree to the supply to local food markets in forms of dairy, in forms of milk, in the form of meat, because the form of production is very adapted to the local conditions. So you can't produce meat with industrial animal farms and high yield breeds of animals like Holstein cow in the sub-Saharan context. You need adapted animals and mobility patterns, and that's what the pastoralists are doing in a very high degree, if I'm not wrong. According to the FAO, more than 50% of local food supply is secured through these systems. On the other hand, we are like custodians of the landscapes on the ground. We are moving our livestock, managing commons. Sometimes it's not about fencing your own property of land as a farmer, no, would consider, but more about the use of extensive lands of territory. And then in that sense, food sovereignty involves the sovereignty over natural resources like the mountains, the forest, and the grasslands. No? And then in that sense, we are contributing as well to the climate change mitigation. It's very different from industrial farming, industrial livestock systems that are actually blamed for many of the methane emissions and so on. But in our case, we are like more on the, let's say, on the side of the solution than of the problem to climate change. And regarding food sovereignty, we want to also make clear that pastoralism is not just offering an ecosystemic service. We are not just here to make the forests to be clean and preventing fires, or to allow other wild biodiversity to coexist with pastoralism. That is what we see in a very high degree, that high nature value livestock systems are home to a huge biodiversity. But as we said, we also want to make clear that we are here to produce healthy food, healthy fibers like the wool and the leather. So we need a proper recognition in terms of prices to what we do. We don't want to be subsidized and just rely on payments for these ecosystemic services and environmental services. Now, the main challenges we are facing are related with the possibility of maintaining our forms of life and forms of production. And that's usually a combination of different factors that make it difficult. Wrong policies that don't understand the nature of mobile pastoralism, that make mobility difficult, that don't protect the access to markets of our produce, that don't supply with mobile services these communities, and therefore these policies are actually forcing sedentarization very often, that also put a lot of bureaucratic and legal difficulties to the forms of life we carry on, for example, in terms of um, health standards for animal movement are very complicated when you cross borders. Borders themselves are a problem. Also, for productions like craft food productions in terms of milk transformation and so on, it gets very, very complicated. And another big problem is the enclosure of land that pastoralist systems rely on. Land that are commons, seasonal grasslands that often are seen as like nobody's really growing anything here. So we just enclose it and sell it to companies. So the companies take over for mining, for windmill parks, for natural reserves. It is really important for us to make sure that conservation, nature conservation is not involving the exclusion and displacement of pastoralist communities, as we have seen in Africa and in other places. And yeah, another challenge is the lack of continuation of activity by young people in pastoralist families. We need to make sure that proper life conditions are offered to young pastoralists and that we can continue with this form of life, that there are services and a proper market recognition. So that's why we get together in different networks at regional level, at national level, and globally within the World Alliance of No Indigenous Peoples. And we want to make sure that at global level, the policies that will impact on us are like addressing our real needs and our agenda. We very often see that UN bodies are talking about the importance of pastoralism, but even sometimes like expressing our needs in our behalf, but there is not a real inclusion in the decision-making bodies and platforms. For example, now there is like a whole let's say, alliance for the International Year on Rangelands and Pastoralism, and we would like to see a better understanding of our concerns. For example, how the UN Food System Summit might be compromised because of the influence of corporate lobbies on this process. In that sense, for us, the IPC is an important process in which we need to be very present broadly to build stronger alliances with the other, let's say, brothers and sisters producers on the land, fisherfolk, peasants, and land workers, to be able to align and have a clear single voice, because we are all, let's say, suffering from the corporate agribusiness influence on policies and global neoliberal economic impact on the livelihoods of small producers.